Each year, over 30,000 accidents are reported at amusement parks. Most are minor incidents like trips and falls, but some can be more severe and even cause death. And the incident that happened in June of 2023 at the Wild Rose Carnival could have very well become fatal. This is Theme Park Accident. Each year, the Wild Rose Carnival, based out of Spruce Grove, Alberta, goes on their fair circuit and travels all throughout small towns in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And 1 month into their 2023 season, they decide to take a stop at the Stony Plain Rodeo on June 2nd, 2023. It was planned to be just a normal weekend like every time they set their carnival, with just some rides, games, and food, and lots of people coming out to see it. But what they didn't see coming was 2 people becoming hospitalized and the entire carnival being shut down for most of the weekend. But what exactly was this incident and what caused it? Well, let's take a look back to May of 2023. The ride in question that we're talking about today is this ride known as Hurricane, which basically spins in a circle and bounces riders up and down in the little cars. And this ride seemed to have been experiencing issues ever since one of the first times they had set it up for the season. It did pass safety inspections from the Alberta government at the start of the season, but a couple weeks after that, when we get into May, there was multiple reports of the ride where it's malfunctioning and wasn't working properly. And most of these complaints from guests seem to be regarding the ride's safety restraints. An Albertan man by the name of Sean Weatherall reported that his 2 boys got on the ride in St. Albert back in May, and allegedly right before the ride was about to start, the safety restraints in their car weren't locked into place for some reason. So before the ride started, both his kids jumped out of the ride, and obviously the ride operator started yelling at his kids, fearing that they were not safe getting off the ride like that. And of course, in the end, it was never really reported if the ride operator actually went to try and fix the ride or see what was wrong with it or report it to anyone. Of course, this first incident may have happened a little bit differently than the man did explain, but since there are also multiple other reports of incidents happening with this ride before the final malfunction, it seems as though the ride had been experiencing some issues since sometime in May, and the carnival never did anything to address these issues. Of course, the actual big incident on this ride happened in June. It all started on June 2nd, 2023, when the carnival opened up for their very first day in Stony Plain. It was a very normal day at the carnival. They were seeing lots of guests and all the rides were functioning as normal. But as night was approaching, it was finally the evening, the incident had taken place. The ride was doing its fairly standard operations. The ride was all filled out and they were just working on balancing out the ride before they started, just to make sure no incidents were to have happened on the ride. Garsky and Caleb Stearns were on the ride at the time when they were asked to move to another seat to help balance it out. But for some unknown reason, when Garsky and Caleb were getting up from the ride with the assistance of the ride operator moved to another seat, the ride started up for some reason without any ride operator in the operations booth, and Garsky and Caleb were both struck by the ride. Of course, when the 2 got hit, they did fall onto the protective netting around the ride, so they didn't get injured too seriously, but Garsky did end up getting a massive cut and ended up needing to get stitches in the hospital, and Caleb ended up sustaining a concussion on the ride. And at the same time, none of the safety restraints had been set into place yet around the ride, so people that were on the ride while it started moving around were fearing for their life as they weren't securely put into place. Immediately as the incident happened, they shut down the ride as quickly as possible and evacuated people from the area. They called the ambulance and fire department. The 2 that were struck by the ride were rushed to hospital, while the fire department started to take a little investigation at what exactly happened with the ride. After that Friday, they shut down the entire carnival for the next 2 days of the event, so they could inspect the entire carnival for safety issues, and allegedly they would also retrain their entire staff. After this point, it's not really reported what happened with the investigations, if it was the fault of the carnival or if it was some sort of mechanical issue that couldn't have been found previously. But whatever the reason, the ride was removed permanently from the carnival's ride lineup and did not operate through the rest of the summer. Of course, from all the information that was reported, it seems like it was part fault of the carnival, as there was multiple issues with the ride before this incident, and also this wasn't even the only incident to have happened at that carnival Carnival on the day, as earlier the same morning of this ride incident, a child had gone injured on another ride that ended up getting shut down, but this incident wasn't really reported too much on what exactly had happened to the child and why he was sent to hospital. So we can definitely see that maintenance-wise at the Carnival, there's definitely some issues going on. But another part of the blame, I would say, could be put on the Alberta government due to their regulations around Carnival rides. Because under Alberta regulations, these Carnival rides only need to be tested once a year before their first setup. So that means that after the Carnival is set up and they tear it down and move it to another town, the Alberta government doesn't need to do any more checks on that Carnival ride the next so many times that they set it up, which is very strange because likely with traveling carnivals, while they move around rides, they can lose pieces and get dented, and if the Carnival doesn't care enough about their rides, lots of these issues can go unnoticed. Well, if the government were to require inspections after every single setup of these rides, they can definitely control more about the safety of these rides, as the government definitely puts more effort into safety inspections on these rides than the Carnivals do. So due to the Carnival's poor maintenance and the Alberta government not doing checks on these rides regularly, it let this ride slowly get worse and worse over time until eventually injured 2 people, sending them to hospital. Thankfully, from this incident, no one died and no one got seriously injured, but this could have gone way worse and something even worse could have happened. But this is just yet another example of why carnivals really need to start investing more money into maintenance of their parks, because it seems like carnivals is where most ride incidents end up happening. And with all that said, that's it for today's video. If you want to see more videos like this, comment them down below and make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another upload. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Goodbye.